to think that Neville, who, when we look at his teachings in historical context, which most people have not done who are in this community.
Very true.
His teachings fit, like you said, they might not completely fit. In my opinion, they do completely fit, but they might not completely fit, but they pretty damn close to completely fit with, first of all, Coué, who's my favorite law of attraction teacher and who is not religious, and with the entire New Thought movement, which was a Christian movement.
Sure.
Christianity, you know, the golden rule is the paramount thing.
Do unto others.
Yeah. If you think you're going to get away with that horse shit, that manipulative, narcissistic, insane behavior,
that's what it is.
Then you're out of your fucking mind.
And that's what Neville's golden rule is too.
Of course. Neville talked about the golden rule all the time. And he talked about, you know, you can potentially break this, especially later on, you know, after the promise. Like, I think he just became, in my opinion, he just became tired. Honestly, he was like, I'm sick of talking about the law. Like, I mean, he still talked about the law plenty, but you know what I mean? He was more interested in his own personal spiritual experiences at that point. And he said, you know, at that point, he was a little bit looser just because I think he was like, you know, whatever, you guys aren't going to listen anyway a lot of the time. Right. Like, but he was like, you know, you could potentially use this to do ill. And he always said that. He said that from At Your Command, which is from 1939. Like, you can do this to cause harm. But why would you do that? And, you know, karmic retribution in that sense is a real thing. Florence Scovel Shinn, I agree with you. I think Florence Scovel Shinn, for most people, is a better introductory teacher to these ideas than Neville is, as is for sure The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy. Murphy, you know, 80% plus of that book is the same content that Neville always talks about. Apparently, they were both taught by Abdullah. I don't know if that's true or not, but regardless, you know, the content and, you know, how Murphy talks about visualization and affirming, it's extremely similar to Neville. The difference is, even though Neville was more eloquent than anybody, Murphy's like usually more practical, and he lays out why this stuff works in everyday language and in like easy to understand psychological language, and why like you have to follow the golden rule or you're going to get fucked. He lays it out amazingly clearly in The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, probably in a more clear fashion. I'm not saying better. I'm just saying in a more clear fashion than anything that Neville, you know, presented in book form, let alone his lectures. So, yeah, I mean, I've made a lot of SP videos where I talk about this. Just because, I mean, I started making SP videos as a joke because Maggie made them. And I was like, how does she do this? I got to make some SP videos. Because all I talk about in my SP videos is it's you, it's you, it's you, it's you, it's you. It's not about the other person. It's you.
Yeah.
And if you love another person, you don't want to manipulate them. This is Christianity 101. This is New Thought 101.
Right.
And, you know, I'm glad you mentioned Coué. You know, Coué is the great, and this is my opinion, obviously, but like he is the great underappreciated link to all of this. You know, I think people on your channel might already know of him, but like to those of you listening who don't, Coué is the person to really look into, and I would say study if you want to understand these ideas better. Because like that idea that illustration you just gave, Marvin, of like the wire, right, is the perfect illustration. And Coué does that all the time. He basically proved, without using any spiritual language, he intentionally used like secular everyday language, that your imagination always overpowers the will.
Absolutely.
And that your will is a great power, but your imagination is so much stronger than it. So the idea is to get your willpower aligned with your imagination as well as you can. And then you'll be able to do
Exactly.
more and more great things in your life. And, I also should mention that like Coué, even though he very intentionally was not using religious language, if you read about his life and how he taught and how many people he helped heal themselves, because he always said, I don't heal you, you heal yourself.
Yeah.
And he literally helped tens of thousands of people do that. If you read about this guy, he's probably the best example of like, like a walking Christ in this recent, Western law of attraction movement. He's a better example than Neville or Abraham Hicks or Joseph Murphy. I'm not saying that, in my opinion, he was a better teacher, but I'm not saying it's not about best. My point is, Coué walked the walk and had much more success than any of these other teachers that I know of. And I know quite a few of the teachers, I know a little bit about the history of this stuff. But he wasn't sexy. He wasn't eloquent. And I love Neville for those reasons and many other reasons. He wasn't maybe as far out as Neville, but like Coué explains why this stuff works for you. And just as importantly, why it does not, why it's not natural to be able to climb, to, walk over a wire that's, elevated on 2 high buildings and be able to walk without falling. He always said, your imagination, if you believe it, it will do anything you want it to do, as well as it's in the laws of nature, within the laws of nature. And we can debate that. I don't mind people who think otherwise, that everything's in the law of nature. But on a practical, pragmatic level, for most of us, we're trying to improve our lives practically. Like you said, we're trying to improve relationships, improve our professional, jobs, or our outlook on the world, our financial situation, where we live, our health. These are practical things. You go to the law of assumption community, and they're more interested in like, is it actually possible to fly? Like, can I grow 6 inches? And the answer is maybe you can. And at the same time, I would be more concerned about my level of everyday happiness and feeling that and being able to give that to others than, these very theoretical questions, which is what people get lost in the sand about. And it sounds interesting. It's very interesting theoretically, but it's not relevant for most of us in terms of practically improving our lives. Most of us have stuff we want to clean up. That's why I go to these teachings. I want to clean shit up in my life. Spiritually, I usually feel pretty okay.
Right.
I'm not looking for like deep spiritual solutions always from these people. I'm looking for like, how can I treat people better? How can I treat myself better? Again, that links back to the relaxation thing and stress management thing. How can I get my house in order? Make sure people are happy, make sure that work-wise, financially, relationship-wise, health-wise, we're in the best shape that we can be.
Absolutely.
And that is a continual and often humbling process for most of us. And you can say, oh, well, Neville was different, da, 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 da. I don't see proof of that.